Good afternoon. I am going to call to order the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee meeting for today, Wednesday, January 14th. It is 3:32 p.m. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Present. I'm trying to get my camera on. Okay, present. Oh, shoot.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Here.
Vice Chair Switzer,
Present.
Alderman Devoti, Alderwoman Cox Antwi, Chair Browning.
Present.
We have 6 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to our next item, which is approval of the minutes. I will accept a motion to approve the minutes from Wednesday, December 10th, 2025.
I move
So
to
moved.
approve the minutes from Wednesday, December 10th, 2025.
Second.
It was moved by the Alderwoman from the 1st, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 10th. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Vice Chair Switzer,
Aye.
Alderman Devoti, Alderwoman Cox Antwi, Chair Browning.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes.
With that, we've approved the minutes. We'll move on to our next item, which is board bills for review. We have one board bill for review that we're going to get out of the way real quick here, and that is board bill number 115. I am the sponsor on that, so I will hand the chair over to Alderwoman Schweitzer, my vice chair at this time.
Thank you, Chair Browning. You are recognized on Board Bill 115.
All right, thank you. So Board Bill 115 is a simple thing, but it's a board bill to allocate $5 million towards the repair of our flood wall. This is part of a requirement that the city matches a grant so that we can allocate this money towards the repair. There may be some additional parts to move around in the future in order to complete this package, but right now, this is an opportunity for the city to maximize the amount of money available in order to repair this critical piece of infrastructure that protects our city from the river where we get our water. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Alderman Browning. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone here to speak on this?
No.
Okay. With that, we'll move through members of the committee for questions. Alderwoman Boyd.
My question is, you said it's for a flood wall. Where is it at? I'm sorry.
So this is the flood wall that all along the riverfront of the Mississippi, and this is really to perform some testing along the wells that exist along that wall to make sure that we are not only cleaning those out because they do collect debris over time, but also to make sure that they're properly working. This is routine maintenance that needs to happen, but it is also very expensive, and so it's something that we have the opportunity to get matching money from the state at the moment. They've allocated money at the state level. In the last year's budget, they carried it over to this year's budget, and so we're looking to pay our part of it to receive those matching funds.
So Alderman Browning, I guess my other question is, you said this is a maintenance thing. So is this something that we should be doing yearly or every 5 years, or how is that working?
I don't have the exact estimate on how often it's supposed to happen. this is something I've been working on with the mayor's office. I think this is one of those things that, like a lot of things in our city, we're behind on the maintenance. But I'm not sure exactly what the routine amount of time is that we're supposed to be returning to this. I do know that the flood wall is in a place right now, though, where it needs that maintenance.
And so I'm asking that because, as you're correct, we don't have preventive maintenance things that's happening. So I guess my other question, who will be doing that? Who is supposed to do the maintenance on this?
So per our charter, the streets division is responsible for maintenance of the flood wall. I know it seems like it maybe should be the water division, but it is actually the streets department that is in charge of that. So we've been working with Zach Fortune, who was in the streets department, recently received a promotion, is moving elsewhere, but we have all the supporting documentation of just what this will cost and exactly the work that'll be done. The street department will be contracting out because this is not work that they have employees to do. So they'll be working with the city to do that.
Okay, and I think it would be wise also if the street department, and I'm assuming, and you know what assume means, with the new director, that he will make sure that that is a scheduled item, so we wouldn't have to get to this situation again.
That's an excellent thought.
Yeah, I just think that, we have to come up to the 21st century. So thank you so much for answering my questions.
Thank you, Alderwoman.
Thank you, Alderman Boyd. Moving on, Alderman Clark Hubbard.
No questions. Thank you for bringing this bill forward, and I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Thank you
So
much.
noted.
Thank you so much. We'll move to Alderman Devoti.
Alderman, can you give us a flavor of the kind of work that would be scheduled with these funds?
Yes, so there will be pump tests, there will be clearing of debris from the pumps, there will be testing of the wells that exist along the wall, checking of and replacement of valves. I have a long list of things. There's 63 wells along the wall. They were going to remove the trash and debris from those that accumulates over the years. They're going to replace 7 housing screens, 65 housing lids. They've got 7 and 10-inch check valves that they need to replace, 57 8-inch check valves that they need to replace, and as well as just doing pump tests along the wall, as well as sand content testing and a lot of environmental work.
Assuming this board bill passes and we find this $5 million to match the state's, that amount that the state has appropriated, will that $10 million cover that work that is now required to repair and maintain our flood wall?
That is the thought. There will be other funding sources as well that we'll be looking at, but I think that right now we're looking at, and hang on, let me confer with Mayor's office real quick on this. So the first $700,000 is going to go into figuring out exactly what work needs to be done. And so that's part of what this is going to go towards paying for. And then we'll have a broader idea of what work needs to be done after the initial testing and replacement of these materials is done.
In other words, we know generally the work that needs to be a study in order to prioritize that work.
That's right. We have to get in there and look at the condition of the wells and the wall.
And the thought is that at least $10 million is needed to complete this work.
That is the thought, possibly more. But this is one of those things where if we pass this bill fulfilling the city's match, that it makes us eligible for much more money from the state. So it's really making the most of our money.
Understood. Thank you for the information.
Thank you, Alderman Devoti. Alderwoman Cox Antwi.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I don't have Can you all hear me now?
Mhm.
Great. I don't have any further questions. A lot of my questions were asked by my colleagues, and I agree with their sentiments wholeheartedly. I'm glad we're making the effort to do it now and contribute this portion. And as a person that has a huge stretch of the flood wall in my ward, I can attest to the fact that these repairs are certainly necessary, and I'm glad we're making the action.
Thank you so much. Anything you'd like to say to close, Alderman?
No, I just appreciate the good questions. This is a really important piece of maintenance for our city. I think we're going to hear about some more important pieces of maintenance in the upcoming presentation. And so just to speak broadly, it's really important that we take care of our infrastructure, that we, especially critical infrastructure like this that protects our city. This is one of those things that I think has benefited our city for a long time. It quietly sits there and protects our city, but we'll notice it if it fails. So we want to make sure that we're doing the work necessary and taking this kind of action. So really appreciate your time.
If I could make one statement, Madam Clerk, if you would add me as a co-sponsor.
So noted.
I would like to follow and also be added as a co-sponsor.
So noted.
Could we embank it, please?
There's been a motion to embank. Any second?
Second.
Call for previous roll.
Previous row.
Any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection, we have moved that Board Bill number 115 is embanked. At this time, I will entertain a motion for a due pass recommendation of Board Bill 100.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
It's been
Previous
moved by
roll.
the Alderman from the 5th, seconded by the Alderman from the 10th. There's been a call for previous roll from the Alderwoman for the 13th. Any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection,
I'm sorry. Who made the motion?
Alderman from the 5th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection, we have passed Board Bill number 115 with a pass recommendation. Thank you, Alderman. I will pass it back to you for the remainder of the meeting.
Thank you. With that, we will move on to the next item, which is resolutions for review. We have none of those, and so we will move to item number 6, which is committee discussions. With that, we have a presentation from our Water Division today. Director Patel, you are here for the Water Division along with a couple other members of your staff. Please introduce yourself and your staff and proceed.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Browning, Vice Chair Schweitzer, rest of the members of the committee. So we have a presentation today. It's an important update. We monitor our finances closely, and some new information deserve to be presented to the public, to this committee. And so we put this presentation together in short order to try to put together an update for you all and for the community. Spencer Gould, my special assistant to the Water Commissioner, helped put the presentation together, and also Perla Burke, our fiscal manager. So I'm Neeraj Patel, the Director of Public Utilities, and let's get started. All right, so this presentation, we're going to go through a number of different topics here, but safe, reliable, economical water is the promise, right? So it's ingrained in our mission. Our mission drives a lot of what we do every day, most of what we do every day, and a lot of what I'm here to talk to you about today too. So we'll start out with a little bit of history, as we typically do, just to convey, what it is the Water Division is responsible for, the scope and scale of that, and then we'll get right into the financial situation that I'm here to present. From there, we'll go into some of the cost drivers that we're seeing, some of the changes there, and then go into our revenues. We do have water rates to support the enterprise that we are, and so we want to present on what we're doing to make sure that the revenues are sufficient. From there, we'll go into next steps. So I mentioned our mission, right? To provide an uninterrupted supply of high-quality drinking water for city residents, businesses, and other valued customers. These are the people that live, work, and play in St. Louis every day, and safe drinking water is critical to any city. Whether that comes from a river source like we have or wells, it it drives the economy, it drives the public health and well-being, the livelihood of a city. So we have a responsibility too to make sure that we're doing that in an economic manner. This is a municipal ownership situation, so the city owns the water division, and we do not have investors or profits to make. So every dollar that comes in goes right back into the system and to providing the service that we do. So the history of the water division, the creation of the waterworks began in 1831, a long time ago. Shortly after that, the city took over operation of that mission in 1835. We purchased the existing system for $18,000. It sounds unbelievable. It was a great deal back then, but the population was only 6,000 people. This system really began at the foot of downtown. The Arch Grounds around that point, it was just a collection of 6 pumps, and a few sticks of pipe that were put together to start. And, it's been built into the system that it is today. As the population grew, we had to invest. We had to build new infrastructure, and with that came innovations in the industry that, have spanned the world over now. So we have a proud history of water in the city of St. Louis. Bissell plant was built in 1871, 40 million gallon a day capacity that would not serve our needs today. And so shortly after that, the Chain of Rocks plant started being built. In 1894, that plant had 4 times the capacity of the Bissell plant. And, that would serve the capacity of the system today, but the city saw fit to grow with the population and plan ahead. In 1929, the Howard Bend plant was built and came online. The cost of that plant was $12 million at the time. And, the population was anticipated to grow to 820,000 people and further. So it was built for 1 million people, the water system that we are enjoying today. And the Chain of Rocks plant and the Howard Bend plant are the 2 treatment plants that we operate today to produce drinking water for the city of St. Louis. So there was a little bit of information in there about our customer base. The population decline is really adding to this challenge of the spreading the costs out over a larger group of people. The infrastructure that we have is sized for 1 million people, but is being supported with rates by less than 300,000. So, that is part of the challenge. The rates support our operation. The less people there are paying those rates, the more challenging it is on the ratepayers. We're proud to say, though, that we still have some of the lowest rates in the country, although I wish we didn't have to be here today to tell you about what we're here to talk about, our financial situation, the challenges with that. So, this slide kind of goes through the time frame, the population of the city, the growth, and then the decline, and continued decline. We really kind of cut it off there at 1974, but as you all know, we are less than 300,000 strong today. So 190 years of municipal ownership. That is impressive. That matters. The city owns the waterworks. The city owns the water system, and needs to continue owning that if it wants to be, that responsible steward of the future. Giving it away would be exactly that. Giving, one of the most valuable assets the city owns away. I don't know how you put a value on it, but certainly it means a lot to me. It means a lot to the city residents that rely on that tap working every morning when they turn it on to brush their teeth or take a shower. But it is owned by all of us, and we're proud of it. But we do have a responsibility to maintain it, renew it, and make sure that it's something that can serve future residents. So this shows the infrastructure footprint. It is the 65 square miles that is the city of St. Louis, along with some transmission mains that run from Chesterfield to the city limits from the Howard Bend water treatment plant that brings treated water every day to the city residents. So we do have the 2 plants and 1,300 miles of water mains. That is a lot. It is, again, sized for 1 million people, and all of that is ours to enjoy the benefits of, but also have to pay back into. You have to renew that infrastructure and keep it going for the generations to come. There are 2 treated water storage reservoirs, Stacy Park Reservoirs in Olivet, and then we have the Compton Hill Reservoir that is in the city limits near the Shaw neighborhood. We do have 23,000 valves, 15,500 fire hydrants, and as you can see, the colors that are on that map there represent 3 pressure zones that we operate. These are closely related to the elevations within those areas, and so we do operate these 3 zones to maintain adequate pressure within an optimal range based on these different elevations. So that brings me to kind of the statement of the day here. The Water Division is projected to deplete our contingent fund balance by the end of the fiscal year. This is information that we track, that we update based on revenue projections, based on expenses, but a lot of these things are dynamic. We have expenses that go up and down based on seasonality, water main breaks, which we do have a lot of, and we'll show later on, more than the national average. So the infrastructure is aging. We have not done, enough to keep up with renewing that on a schedule. So this contingent fund balance that we have relied on, in these years of deficit, it affects our ability to provide our mission. So safe, reliable water at an economic cost. This is essential. We have to address these challenges as they come up, and I hope this presentation today, shows you that we are in a condition that is not sustainable. So over the past 7 years, and we'll switch back and forth between fiscal years and calendar years, but we have experienced rising costs. This predates COVID, but of course COVID, ramped up the inflationary actions that we're seeing, some of the chemical costs that we're seeing, some of the staffing costs that we see. And there was also an effect of the moratorium that was put into place as a result of COVID. So 5 years of not shutting water off did result in a number of customers who had legitimate challenges paying their bills and continuing in that trend. And the value now of that revenue that we have not collected has grown significantly. We've also had rising emergency costs. These are directly related to the state of the assets that we have and the remaining service life that is left in. So this chart here, kind of goes over our revenues and expenses. The blue line there is the expenses, and so you can see that we have not caught up with revenues yet. So the shortfall, the gap between these lines, prior to this 7-year period where we had these consistent shortfalls, there were years when we had higher revenues and expenses and years that we had higher expenses. We did have that contingent fund balance, though, there to supplement. And so the increases that were passed in 2023 and the beginning of 2024, you can see that they did react. We do have revenues that were growing, and they almost seem to actually pace the expenses there, but the action happened too late. We had a rate sufficiency study that recommended an increase in 2021. The increase did not happen until 2023. And so, this gap, this lag in rates that are sufficient is part of the challenge that we're seeing, is the 7 years of deficit and borrowing from this contingent fund, which has many purposes. As I mentioned, the contingent fund, sometimes we'll refer to it as a reserve fund. The balance did grow. It was above $35 million, up to $38 million. And in 2023, when we came here seeking those increases that were recommended in the 2021 rate sufficiency study, the balance was near $26 million. As you can see, we had a continued deficit. Those green and red bars there show either the surplus or deficit within a fiscal year. And even following that, the rate of drop in the contingent fund balance does slow, and we do have smaller deficits, but they continued. And, I think when that increase was presented, we were still projecting a shortfall in the following fiscal year. So rising costs, aging infrastructure, lagging revenue. These are the kinds of things that drive these budget deficits, and I'll talk a little bit more about the factors that come into play, towards that effect later on. But another thing to consider is our creditworthiness. So, infrastructure like this does not just get paid for out of, revenues that are coming in. You have to acquire debt. Large water systems across the country, public or private, have debt. It is an instrument that we use to pay for things that will last a very long time. Some of these water mains last 50 to 100 years. Some of these treatment facilities last, 30 to 50 years. We're on borrowed time on a lot of that stuff, but you do not pay for that up front and then, front load that. You pay for that over time. So there are financial instruments, debt instruments that are available to us through federal funding, through state funding. There's state revolving fund loans that were implemented with some of the improvements with the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Clean Water Act. These are subsidized loans. In the state of Missouri, these loans are subsidized where the interest rate that is paid is 30% of the interest rate a couple of weeks ahead of closing on that loan. So it's a pretty good deal. We can get interest rates below 2%. We can get interest rates down to 1.5%, which is what we did in 2013 when we were on the tail of rate increases that allowed us to go after that loan, that debt, and we got rates in the 1.5% range. That was a $10 million loan. We've got an application out for a $35 million loan, but this isn't free money. You have to be able to cover that debt. And so these are backed by revenue bonds, and the revenue bonds require certain indentures. One of the indentures is that you're able to pay for your operating expense and that debt. So, with a coverage ratio. So at the bottom of the slide here, I've got kind of a long blurb that is a cut and paste from the current bond indentures that we are adherent to. A couple of the highlights there. So the city will enforce charges for services. When we provide water service, the rate that people pay is that charge. We collect on those rates. We have enforcement mechanisms. We have a responsibility to collect, to be solvent. Further there, we have revenues that are sufficient to cover the OpEx plus 110% of the principal and interest. So basically that is debt coverage ratio. I've got copied in there. It's 110%. So annually, currently our debt is about $500,000. We have to have 110% when you take the revenues minus the expenses to meet that requirement. In a year, when you're issuing new debt, that has to be a little bit higher as well. So, lastly, I've got highlighted there that the study, if a rate sufficiency study is pursued, which we're required to do every 24 months, and it recommends that a rate adjustment is necessary, that the city will act. The city agrees to make the actions necessary to correct that deficiency. And, those reflect on our creditworthiness, as the water division, but also the city. So a lot of these bond ratings see us the same. We are a city department, yes, but we are the city of St. Louis as well. So we have to maintain that creditworthiness. So now I'm going to go into the cost drivers that we're experiencing. We've broken this apart into 4 main categories here. Aging infrastructure. This will sound like a broken record, but rising emergency costs. One of the factors that we watch and that has brought us here to present this information quicker today than we anticipated, we had the highest number of main breaks in 2025 that we've had in over 7 years. 399 breaks. We go out, we address those, we repair those. They cost on average $13,000 per. And that is just a localized repair. That is not renewing the infrastructure. That is not renewing the water main. That is an emergency cost. These emergency costs will continue to rise if we do not do the level of renewal that we need to be doing. The next driver here is the staffing. So, you know, we have a blended staffing mix here that I'm going to talk about. It, you know, talks about the city forces, you know, personnel that we have that are employed directly by the city, but also the contract labor that we rely on, that the industry has grown to rely on. And increased competition is one of the things that is driving that cost up. So in the water sector specifically, the professionals that have that kind of experience are garnering a higher salary. We have to match that level in order to attain this talent. Next item here is inflation, price volatility. You know, this is cooling a little bit, but the effects are still there. When I showed those charts, the rising revenues, yes, but the rising expenses, you know, we are still seeing some price volatility in one of our largest expenses, which is the chemicals that we use to treat the water. You know, this is $15 million a year, and I think we're projecting a little bit higher next year as well. We're also seeing inflation and increased costs across the utilities that we have to pay. You know, the process of pumping water is highly energy intensive. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We are pumping water into the system to support daily demands, but also refill the reservoirs so that we're ready for the next day. You know, that energy and that electrical cost is approximately $5 million, but as Ameren gets rate increases, you know, those are borne by us and then, of course, passed on to the ratepayers as well through the rates. Now, every time Ameren gets a rate increase, we don't go turn around and raise our rates. It's absorbed by us until we can accommodate that in the next increase, in the next adjustment. The last item here is major capital projects. So, you know, item one, aging infrastructure. The way you combat that is by renewing the system, putting money back into it. The rate increases helped. The rate increases that were passed in 2023 and 2024, those did allow us to start doing some small level of renewal. We have seen the benefits there. You know, instead of having to repair failing pumps over and over again that are 60 years old, we did a pump replacement. We've done, you know, 3 pump replacements now, you know, of the 30 or so units that we do have. So we are making a dent, and we hope not to have to go back and spend money to repair that asset again for a long time. We do ongoing maintenance of all of the pumping units to make sure that we're doing our part. But what I'm talking about is the renewal costs. Aside from the pumps is the pipes. So 1,300 miles of water main. You know, we try to replace 0.5% a year. That's going to be 6 or 7 miles. We're not there yet. So we need to do more to replace the pipes that are most vulnerable, that are breaking more often, so that we can reduce that emergency expense. I've got there the water master plan. You know, we are moving through that process. We hope to have that complete, you know, by the summer, fall of this year. So we will have a capital list, capital program, and a cost estimate for that. All right, moving into aging infrastructure. So this is a chart that just shows the water main breaks by year. We do have some fluctuations. It goes up, it goes down. You know, there are certainly weather impacts that will, you know, increase it or decrease it in a given year. We did have quite a few main breaks this summer that contributed to that 399 number. And then we did experience a higher number of main breaks as well. The national average would put us at about 177 breaks per year. And so I mentioned the high cost of emergency repairs here. You know, we can drive that cost down significantly if we can replace the pipes that are most prone to breaking, you know, and continue to do that in an ongoing fashion. And that is, you know, certainly a better use of the money. It's a more efficient use of the money. I think it is the responsible thing to do, is to reinvest heavily into the water mains that have served for, you know, 100 years. This map here shows the main breaks across the city. As you can see, there is, you know, no corner untouched. I don't know how well to scale the north end of that map is. There's just a sliver of the city that runs up basically to the Chain of Rocks water treatment plant. So you have the river, you have the bluff, and we're nestled in right there at the top of the city. I talked a little bit about the number of breaks per year that we experience. We're averaging 30 breaks per 100 miles, and this is over the course of several years. The national average is closer to 14, so we can cut that number in half. These breaks affect people's lives. They affect their daily activity, they affect the businesses, they affect public safety. So, if there is a main break, it is more challenging for residents to traverse that main break, especially in the colder weather. There's, ice that forms. These water mains are in the city roads, So on to the personnel retention challenges. This is the staffing portion. So I mentioned we've got rising costs with our staffing. We are adding positions to our TO. I'll show in a slide or two here that we're slowly increasing our TO, the budgeted positions that we have in our division. We're adding project managers, we're adding engineers, we're adding utility locators, supervisors, and a superintendent. This is all to address, the increased number of water main breaks, yes, but also to be able to do the utility locates that are resulting from increased development in the city, to do the utility locates because Spire and Ameren and MSD have been increasing their rates to be able to address their aging infrastructure. And so, we're facing kind of reactionary effects from other utilities, neighbor utilities, doing more work out in the system. 32,000 utility locate requests, this number continues to increase annually as you see Spire out there doing a lot of renewal of their system. As you see Ameren out there doing some underground work where they have underground infrastructure. So this chart shows the increases here. This is actual spend on our personnel services line item in our budget. You can see the increase there. I mean, it is not as extreme as the chemical costs have gone up, but 23% since 2020. And part of this is due to us being able to reduce that vacancy rate that we have, hire more qualified staff, and pay salaries for these staff, these experienced staff in the water industry, to be able to actually keep up with the industry and not lose people to other water utilities. We've had quite a bit of issues with retention. We've worked with the Department of Personnel to react to that and offer salaries to attract these people back. So at the top there, you can see slowly but surely we're adding positions to our TO. I think our budget, in the coming year here, will have another addition. So we are growing at the water division here. Some of the costs that we certainly can control in the staffing realm, we're choosing to staff up, we're choosing to increase, but some of these are things that we're reacting to, right? So the cost of the fringe benefits that we offer to our employees in the city are going up. That happens, and we have to cover that cost without a rate increase. So unlike the annual budget process, we have to react to that internally and absorb that. And so these rate increases, the adjustments that are necessary to cover these increases are something that we come to the Board of Aldermen to talk about. Basically, this slide just talks about that competition, right? So it is a direct correlation. So the other part of the equation for the staffing is contractual. As you can see, they are going up by a significant amount, 62%. Now, a lot of what I'm going to talk about in coming slides here is what we're doing with this increased contractual service and the benefit that we see from it. So these water main breaks, these leaks result in water loss. That is extra energy, that is extra chemicals. So we think we're putting these dollars to good use. And so this slide just kind of is something interesting because we wanted to relate this to inflation. The CPI-U adjustment that was built into the water rate increase that we hoped would allow us to do a little bit more capital work, that we hoped would allow us to build the contingent fund, maybe in 2 years or 5 years. It turns out that there are new challenges that are outpacing the inflationary indexes that we chose. So you can see here, it's significant too. Outpaced inflation by 4% and 37%, respectively. So this shows our vacancy rate. As you can see, we continue to do a little bit better job every year. It is still tough to hire qualified staff. We are working through that. We have a slight reduction from 25 to 26 here, 1%, and we are continuing to hope to build on that. Maybe it ramps a little bit. So, but continuing to use contract labor is not the solution here. We have to have qualified in-house staff. So we are working to do that. Onto the inflation and price volatility. So I talked a little bit about what we're doing, how we're trying to reduce costs. And this chart here shows our total annual pumping. The line above is the raw water pumping, the river water that we bring in, that has all of those suspended solids in, that we use the treatment chemicals to settle out and then filter out. And then the line underneath is the finished water pumping. And so you can see there is a little bit of a gap there. We had many years of increased pumping. This was not because of increased population or increased metered consumption or use by wholesales. This was increased breaks and leaks that were causing water to leak into the ground. And we put the rate increase dollars to work. We started addressing these leaks and breaks quicker, to lose less water into the ground, to save on that energy and chemical costs, the cost of producing the water. That is something that's within our control and our responsibility to be stewards of the ratepayers' dollars, right? So that reduction matters, and I'll show you why. As we reduced our pumping in our finished water pump stations, we reduced our chemical usage. This, again, is one of our biggest expenses as it comes to materials, public health and safety materials. Our lime is our most expensive chemical, and we saw a significant reduction in use of lime because we were pumping less water during those times of peak main breaks in the summer, in the winter. And that's across the board. We saw reductions in all chemicals. Despite those reductions, the chemical expenses remain flat. We control how much we use to an extent, right? And so as we were pumping less water, as we were addressing leaks and breaks quicker with the funds that we had available due to the rate increases, the chemical costs kept rising. So we kept it flat, though. As you can see, it stabilized that reduced usage, stabilized that expense, which was growing pretty rapidly. So we started off at $6 million and then stabilized somewhere around 14. We're projecting $15 million in the coming year here. So again, wanting to tie that back to inflation. Again, the CPI adjustment that was built in is necessary. It just happened January 1. We hope to see some benefit from those increased revenues. But this particular cost, the chemicals, is outpacing the inflation index by the largest amount. It's 73% since 2018. There was a lot of volatility in these costs. And so that $6 million to what we're paying today, pretty significant. To bookend this kind of quad item effect of the rising costs that we're seeing, the capital needs. So the benefit here is that we can actually reduce the emergency expenses, right? So we have a goal replacement rate of 0.5% of our water mains per year. That's 6.5 miles. we want to work towards that goal. The model that we're using is used industry-wide. It's a risk-based approach. You look at a risk factor, you look at a consequence of failure factor, you repair the mains that need to be repaired the most, that have the most expense in emergency. We have identified 63 main replacement projects. We have a list. These are our residential water mains, 6-inch, 8-inch, up to 12-inch, but this spans the city. We have projects that we can do if the funding is available to reduce those emergency expenses. Again, we've had the highest occurrence of breaks in a number of years here. The goal is to reduce those breaks, to reduce the emergency costs and increase the reliability for the city residents. So this is looking into those 63 projects. The average length of these repairs is 1,300 feet. Some are longer, some are shorter, but the average project cost is $450,000. The average year of these 63 mains that we would like to be able to replace is 1937, year built. So we've gotten a long service life out of them. Of these 63 mains, these projects, we've had 199 breaks in the past 5 years. Because these are in the city, because there's congestion underground in utilities, because there are restoration costs that we have to come back and restore the pavement. The replacement cost per mile is going up because of the inflation. So $1.7 million per mile on average. These projects are not insignificant though. This would replace 16.5 miles of main in the city of those 1,300. If we're looking to do 6.5 miles a year, this will keep us busy we just need the funds to be able to do this capital renewal. Lifetime of these projects, we've had 1,400 breaks. So that is a significant amount of repair, of emergency. Again, the estimated cost per break is $13,000. So some of the benefits, these mains can last 50 to 100 years. If we, replace these 16 miles of mains, hopefully we'll not be out there spending dollars on emergency repairs for a long time. So we'll renew that asset for the next 50 to 100 years to come. Of course, every time we do a main replacement, we have to repave the street, so there's an added benefit there. We would repave 16.5 miles of street lanes. So oftentimes too, if it is a residential street, we'll repave the full width of that street. We're causing a disturbance based on the condition of the pavement in that area. We'll just do a full asphalt restoration. So this will maximize the use of money for renewal versus emergency costs, right? Lastly, it stimulates the economy. Everyone's doing infrastructure work in the city. We think we should be out there doing this too. It does benefit the city overall to invest dollars back into the infrastructure, that we've enjoyed for generations. We do have some projects identified at the water treatment plants as well. The electrical systems are quite old. They're past their useful service life. The pump stations are from the same era. I talked a little bit earlier about some of the pump replacements that we have done. These are getting costlier. So the replacements that we did in 2017 cost $2.4 million for 2 pumps. We've got an estimate now for 2 pumps at Howard Bend. That's $8 million. So inflation is certainly causing the cost of these projects to rise, and I think that'll continue. The intake structures are incredibly important to these plants. This is our source water. This is our ability to bring source water into the plant for treatment. This is mostly Missouri River water. Certainly at Howard Bend it is. At Chain of Rocks it's mostly Missouri River water as well because we're on the west bank of the Mississippi River there. So we have replaced several traveling screen machines at the cost of $300,000 to $400,000 per with our existing budgeted funds. Again, the rate increases helped to do that. It helped to renew that asset. That is not insignificant. That was 3 of 4 traveling screen machines at Howard Bend, and we did both traveling screen machines at the Chain of Rocks plant as well. So we do have lime system improvement that we'd like to do. It is our most expensive treatment chemical. This would improve the efficient use of that chemical to further reduce the costs, the amount of lime that we have to use to treat the water. So this takes us to our revenues. We have had some droughts between these rate increases. Did a little bit of digging, looked back into the ordinances. There was increases passed in 94, 2003, 2008, 2010, 2023. Some of these long durations between these increases, and the fact that we started fairly low in the very beginning, annualized, this is 3% per year. It is, stark to hear that there were 2 20% rate increases that were passed, but if you look at that duration going back, it is less than 3% per year to the increases that we've had. So in contrast, we ended up at $2.54 per CCF. This is prior to the 3% increase that we just had. So we're actually at $2.62 now. But in St. Louis County, Missouri American Water charges $7.76 per CCF. In comparison, obviously 3 times higher. In Kansas City, they're above $6 per CCF as well. So this just shows a little bit more of that comparison of the rates. The 3 lines that you see at the bottom there are St. Louis Water. You have the flat rate. It does not matter how much you use. The rate is the same. That chart goes from 3,000 gallons to 12,000 gallons. We highlighted a blue band that's a typical range for a household that you'd anticipate based on EPA estimates per person per day of 82 gallons. As you can see, there is a break-even point for the flat rate versus the metered rate. It is somewhere around 8,300 gallons per month that you would actually save money in a flat rate structure. And then compared to the alternatives that we provided there, we just looked at the top 4 by population in the state. Kansas City Water, Missouri American Water, Springfield, we are below all of them. These older cities with larger footprints, bigger infrastructure, certainly tend to have higher rates. You're looking at St. Louis County and Kansas City Water at the top there. I highlighted the top end of the range there. I can read off some of the other numbers, but you can see there's a pretty significant difference. So, rising delinquency. We took a look at our number of accounts that are delinquent. We are providing notice to our customers that are delinquent. We sent letters to all of them. They continue to receive bills that notify them of that, but we are starting to shut now. So we're providing ample notice. We're providing generous repayment plans, but we still do have over 16,000 accounts that are delinquent and $14 million owed. So next steps. We do track the expenses very closely. We know that we need to reduce our expenses, that impact the city resident the least. That is something that we are doing now. We are taking a look at reducing our spending. There isn't a lot of non-essential spending, so that's not a big bucket. What we can do is pause, defer non-emergency, capital improvement expenses. We do not want to do that. We can take a look at delaying paying our bills, out a little further towards the dates that they're due. We have the gross receipts tax that we pay to the city. We are still behind on keeping up with that bill. But these are short-term solutions. This is not, what we want to have to do. It's something that we have to react to. We're taking a look at our revenues. So we are replacing water meters. This is an ongoing project. It's a very important one. The water meters are how we track consumption across the 12,000 plus accounts that are metered. These are the commercial accounts, the industrial accounts in the city. Replacing these meters ensures that we are billing accurately for the water consumed, and ensuring that we sustain our revenues, as they should be. We're taking a look at our wholesale contracts, taking a look at making some improvements there to guarantee maximum benefit to the city. Those are staggered in the way and time that we have to renegotiate those contracts. We are looking at that. We are resuming shuts. So, it's been only a few hundred shuts that we've done so far. We're using in-house staff. We're building up that program. We're notifying residents ahead of time with letters, with door hangers, notifying them about the assistance programs that we have, notifying them about the repayment plans that we have to get them back on track to avoid disconnection. That is our last resort. We do not want to have to disconnect water service. It is essential. We've seen success. We've reduced some of the debt that's been owed. We've gotten a number of customers to apply for the assistance program, gotten them started on repayment plans into contracts. We've done some shuts. So talking about the customer assistance program, there are still funds available. We announced this back in July. It went live in August. We allowed several months of successful program implementation to help the most vulnerable population. Those that need it the most. It's $1 million in ARPA funding, and there are still plenty of funds available. We recently opened up the eligibility criteria after that time period to allow for the most vulnerable population to apply for and receive these funds, this assistance, to help us get back on track. And now, we're excited to open up eligibility to help even more city residents that are past due, having trouble paying their water bills with that $1 million funding. So we do not charge fees or interest. Our goal, again, is to keep the essential service going. We do have these generous repayment plans, even if you don't qualify for the assistance program. We still encourage our customers who are behind, having trouble paying their bills, to avoid disconnection, that we are out there doing, to contact us first. We have programs available still. We can sign them up for repayment plans. We can take a look at their account, work with them to figure out what's going on. I think it's very important to note, too, that we are still in a special moratorium. We are not shutting in the tornado impact zone. That is something that the administration, the Water Division, I think, the community knows that we need to support those people. We are not out there shutting water in the tornado impact zone. So some of the ways, obviously, we are an enterprise fund of this. We do rely on rates to support the operation, but there are options out there. There is one-time funding that is well suited for infrastructure, things like the ARPA dollars, things like the RAM settlement funds. These amounts are not small either. Obviously, we can solve big problems with these big funding pools. So aging infrastructure is something that is well suited for that. The low interest loans, the SRF, the WIFIA. SRF is a state revolving fund loan. WIFIA is an EPA product. They have some differences, some benefits, pros and cons to each of them. The WIFIA program is not subsidized, so it is just loan dollars at interest rates that are out there, market rates. But there were historic levels of funding that were put out there. Our ability to access these funds, which are financial products, rely on our ability to pay back that debt. We have to have funds to cover debt service. And then, of course, there's always the prospect adjustment is necessary. So, setting water rates, making sure that they're adequate, that is on us to make sure that we do these studies so that we are informed, so that we're keeping ahead of issues that are developing. We take a close look at our finances again, and we are going into the rate sufficiency study. We've kicked it off. We anticipate this will be complete in March. It's going to include a lot of things in that financial model that it builds. So it's going to include deferred debt that we owe. These are our liabilities on our books. It's going to include 5 years of critical capital projects. There'll be a couple of different ways that we'll look at that, a couple of different options that may be presented on how to fund that diverse funding stack, including the SRF, including other funding sources, bonds, grants. But it is going to, look at the most critical projects, including those 63 mains that I highlighted that we need to replace. So it'll determine if there's an increase needed based on these past revenues looking 5 years back and the future projections looking 5 years forward. That includes the CPI adjustments annually. That includes certainly trends for collecting on debt that is owed still. So the financial model that that this consultant will build will drive this study. And this is an industry-wide approach, to take a look at rates in a regular fashion. It's guided by principles. One of them that I highlighted here is the American Water Works Association has a manual, the M1 Manual, Principles of Water Rates, Fees, and Charges. It defines the guidelines that are used to do these rate sufficiency studies. Next steps. So, we want to continue engagement, both with elected officials, with the administration, with the public. And, we're requesting ongoing engagement in this forum and others. We want to present, our story. We want to talk about what it is that we do every day, what it is that we're looking at, what it is that we know we need to do, at these kinds of public meetings. We want to share information. So, along with that, comes building out the infrastructure to do so. We've hired a PIO, a public information officer. We're making improvements on our website to try to get information out in a simple, one-stop shop fashion. And we're looking to engage with these different stakeholder groups so that we can, learn what's important to them with the water system, with the service they receive. So we're going to continue, certainly with a little bit more of a magnifying glass than we have looking back, our finances. We're going to be monitoring these accounts, the choices that we make to control our costs to minimize the impact to the citizen. Water leaks certainly are a problem, but water breaks are a bigger problem. And so, all of the effort that we make to try to contain those leaks and breaks, try to save on the amount of water that we have to pump, reduce those chemical expenses, we'll be balancing with the finances and funding that we have available. Certainly number one priority is safety and service. To the extent that we can, we will maximize the reliability of the system and never compromise on the safety of the water. And again, it's so important that we have these forums, these spaces to talk about what it is that we do, to engage with the public, out in the neighborhoods. We've been attending as many neighborhood meetings as we've gotten invited to. We're certainly talking about the programs that we have available to help people who are struggling to pay their water bills. The assistance program, any kind of fairs or tornado events that we're going to talk about the assistance that is available. And then we're working with community partners, specialists in the space that know what the public is dealing with when it comes to rising costs in utilities. So the water system belongs to all of us. I mean, this is a municipally owned system. It is a system that is owned by the citizens, the people of St. Louis. We are here to be good stewards of the ratepayer dollars, to be good stewards in messaging what is going on in the water. But our mission to provide safe, reliable water at an economic price is something that we take a look at hard every day. It drives all of the activity that we do. We need to keep this utility publicly owned. Investor-owned utilities make profits for investors. They raise costs. They do unnecessary improvements at times just to increase their rate base. We are trying to build our staffing to meet the challenge. We're trying to work around the clock. We have crews that are out there in the middle of the night, rain or shine, repairing water mains that are broken. It is a system that touches all parts of the city. So to evaluate the system, we're certainly looking at the master plan. We're certainly doing our rates efficiency study, making sure that our revenues are in line with the cost of operating the utility. We hope that investing thoughtfully can reduce those emergency expenses and preserve this asset and serve generations to come. So just to kind of end it off, our promise: safe, reliable, economical water for all of St. Louis City, yesterday, today, tomorrow. And with that, I will entertain any questions.
Thank you so much for that very informative presentation. I would love to hear from the public before we go to committee questions. Just anyone that has been here and listening and would like to either share their thoughts or ask any questions that we can ask as a committee, as I know this is very important to many people. So with that, Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up for public testimony?
We have one person. We have one person.
Okay, and we can hear from them now.
Sandra Paget.
Hi, my name is Sandra Paget, and I'm the Executive Director of Consumers Council. And we work to level the playing field for Missouri consumers, and we do that by focusing on affordable utilities. Whenever Ameren, Spire, Missouri American Water, MSD, and of course the City Water Division propose a rate increase, we get involved and we try to be sure, to the extent we can, that the increase is justified and also that there are customer programs in place for people who can't afford the increase. First of all, I want to say that we're really encouraged that part of Neeraj's presentation included that they were going to develop and implement a rate review process and that transparency is important. That's where we're coming from. In the past, as you know, there has not been that transparency. And to date, even though, that is in the presentation, and we are so appreciative of how good of a relationship we have both with Neeraj and Spencer and the alderwoman from, I'm sorry, I can't read your ward. Sorry, Alderwoman Schweitzer and Alderman Browning and Alderwoman Shamim Clark Hubbard too. You all have been just so nice to listen to our current concerns. We've also had a really good relationship with Colonel Johnson. But we raised this issue first in 2023 when the city approved a 44% increase in approximately 3.5 weeks. And that increase moved forward with little or no meaningful opportunity for public participation and without access to what we thought was necessary to consider whether the Water Division's proposal was warranted. We just didn't have enough information. We didn't know, perhaps the rate proposed was too high or maybe it was too low. And beginning in the fall of 2024, we began working with the Jones administration. And then at the request of Mayor Spencer's administration, we submitted a proposed rate review process of May 2025. But to date, no formal procedure has been established. And I'm not saying we haven't made progress, but we don't have a procedure that has been established. We really believe that the residents of the city of St. Louis deserve transparency and a deliberative, orderly process when it comes to decisions that affect their household budgets. We're asking first that the Water Division adopt a clear administrative procedure that it follows before presenting any rate increase to this committee, and that this procedure be made public. And we really look forward to our next meeting with them on January 26th. And second, we're asking that the Board of Alders enact a rate review process by ordinance. This process has been submitted to both the city, and then I sent one to Alderwoman Schweitzer also, and we hope that that has been shared with the committee members. Our proposal is designed to ensure open government, create an accessible and transparent public record, provide for local public hearings, encourage broad agreement among community stakeholders in the Water Division, and allow for informed presentations to this committee. This issue and our request is especially urgent given the current conditions. As Commissioner Patel noted, that there are more than 16,000 delinquent accounts. And we've worked closely with the Water Division to publicize the Customer Assistance Program. If you're curious, you can go on Elliot Davis's TV Facebook channel and see my interview that I did last week. But despite that, we know that there are a lot of city residents that are struggling to keep up with costs. MSD is in the midst of a 32% rate increase. Ameren and Spire rates have increased. Ameren by 12%, Spire by 10 to 12%, depending on where you live in Missouri. And any additional city water rate increase will compound those pressures. And we also know that over 80% of city residents are on a flat rate, which means that when costs go up, there's really not much that they can do to adjust their usage to lower their bills. So we're asking that the committee not consider the Water Division's rate increase, if that is what's coming next, without first adopting a formal, transparent water rate review process. We believe that St. Louis residents deserve an open and accountable process. And we also feel that the Water Division deserves a fair opportunity to present its full case within that process. We felt that the cost of living increase that was just recently implemented on January 1st was arbitrary, because we felt that, we weren't sure that it was going to represent the cost of providing water service. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. And let me just say that we share that commitment to an open and transparent and accountable process. I think this board will be working with the Water Division and the Consumer Council in the future to make sure that we can all be on the same page going forward. As the Water Division is funded by our residents of the city, it's very important that we bring them along in this journey. And with that, we'll move to committee questions. We'll start with in order of seniority. So Alderwoman Boyd, are you with us? I know Alderwoman Boyd's online. We'll give her a second if she's not there anymore. Okay, we'll move on to our next most senior, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, thank you, Director Patel. Let me say before I start with some of the things I took down, just wouldn't want to miss this opportunity to publicly thank you and your staff for the accessibility, for your response time. Most times I'm calling you after hours or emailing you after hours, and you respond and then work towards a follow-up, which is big, right? Because a lot of times somebody might respond and then the follow-up isn't there. Thank you for always doing that. I can definitely attest to you coming out in community. I Saturday morning meetings as well as evening meetings. So I was glad to hear that public engagement is still open and available, and I would love to work with you on opportunities in the 10th Ward. Thank you for noting that there is still money in the assistance program. What I'll say, Ms. Paget, and the work that Ms. Hutchison and her doing community with the Consumer Council of Missouri, I have seen them out in community, making sure people have access, making it make sense to them, because most times people might get frustrated with the application and just give up. They take the time and the patience. So the work that Missouri Consumer Council does is immeasurable too. I wanted to talk just briefly about echoing that we all here are in support and know the value. We learn even more about the value of our water through our #1 water cheerleader here, Alderwoman Schweitzer. So I'm definitely on her cheerleading squad with this. I get it more than ever, and even the time that I spent down there at the water department when you showed me all the old maps and the different lines and everything. I'm a history nerd, so this whole presentation is just, I'm going nuts. I can't wait to share it and watch it again. But as it relates to where we are now in tornado recovery in the city of St. Louis, and I know that you're doing shutoffs again, has there been any intentional effort in looking at people that might have gotten shut off in the tornado impact zones? What does it look like for people that are displaced in that? And if there's any way, let me offer this, if there's any way that I can help with that, because I know all of these little things add up, right? As they're going through their recovery capital, making sure how to make ends meet. I want to make sure, again, that I offer my help for that, or help to create something around that.
Sure, no, I appreciate that. And yeah, we are offering, assistance in the tornado impact area. We've gone out in the community, ensured that anyone who is having a challenge with their water service, we are responding. Whether that be, courtesy shuts to allow them to prevent water from coming into their property, or just assessments, and then also, specialized response, when they're calling us about their accounts, working with them to get them, the assistance that they need. So we have not done any shuts in the zone. We didn't start doing the shuts until after the tornado started. So, we built that in ahead of time. We knew that we could not be shutting water off for those that are dealing with something, much more impactful and bigger. So anyone that is having a challenge, we love to continue working with, you, the elected officials, the alders that are out in community, dealing with, issues that are popping up. So please just reach out to us. And again, we want to be engaged. We want to be out there. So if there's anything that you need that we can provide, in additional assistance to come out and address challenges, we want to be there.
Thank you. I do, as meetings begin to start up for the beginning of the year, would love to have, if you have any kind of information you want passed out at meetings or anything, I'd love to connect with your team to get that. The only other thing I'll mention, I know that, and it was noted in the presentation as well, is how the needs and the wants, all of them fall and mask the entire span of the city, right? So this is something that we should all agree on if it's done the right way. And when I look at those, I think you said 63 capital need projects that you had lined up, and when I think about that spanning the entire city and that being more of the proactive way to deal with that, for me, is kind of like common sense to try to support that, because unless I'm looking at it wrong, if we take care of those, then we won't have the reactive emergency cost projects that we're dealing with now. We won't, am I looking at that right? Or do you
We'll
think?
certainly reduce them.
Reduce
Again,
them.
that is identifying the ones that have the highest risk of failure, consequence of failure, 16 and a half miles of replacement, meaningful work that will keep us busy for, a few years as we chip away at this. And so that's 16, and a half miles of 1,300 miles of water main.
Okay, great. Again, want to be 100%, if not more, supportive of the work that you're doing. Also want to help with the staffing, right? So if you need help with getting that narrative out or the word out, I know there's always people looking for work, and I know this is good work. So please just count me in on any way I can help support you and your staff in the water department.
Absolutely appreciate that. We are hiring.
Yes.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Chairman Browning had to step out for a moment, so I'll be acting as chair for just a few minutes. Alderman Devoti.
I too want to join my colleagues and thank you for your work. There hasn't been a time when I have reached out to you, Director, that you haven't been prompt in the response. And also, as Alderwoman Clark Hubbard also mentioned, not just with the immediate response, but then the follow-up, which is even more important than the immediate response. So thank you. It seems to me, as I listen to your presentation today, I listen to your, or I think back to your other appearances before this committee, that you are fighting a battle on at least two fronts. And in many ways, you have both hands tied behind your back. You know, I have this vision of the little Dutch boy with his finger trying to stick it in the dike, and he runs out of fingers, and there's still leaks all over the place. If I had your job, I think I'd be up at 2 a.m. every morning thinking about the next challenge and not being able to go back to bed. Frankly, I don't know how you do it. On the revenue side, I note that one of your statements was you want to ensure that revenues are in line with the cost of running this utility. And I hear what was said by the consumer advocate, but also listening to the data that you provided, it occurs to me that as we sit today, revenues are not in line with the cost of running this utility. And they're not even close. We're not even in the ballpark as I wrote down as many numbers as I can. I am very interested in hearing the results of the rate sufficiency study. I hear Chairman Browning talk about the need, the absolute demand for transparency. But I guess I'm also thinking, and I'm thinking out loud right now, that there's little doubt in my mind that when we talk about rates, we need to start preparing our residents that they're getting probably an unbelievable deal right now, especially when we look at our neighbors in St. Louis County and what Missouri American Water charges for their water, or we look across the state at the Kansas City Water Company. I mean, frankly, it seems like a catch-up to 2026 is way overdue, way overdue. And I think that's something that as we appear in communities, it's time to have a real talk with our residents about, we've got a heck of an asset here, but we're not going to be able to maintain this thing unless we pay value for the service. Because right now, as a resident, I don't know that I'm paying value for the service you and your utility are providing. I'm going to steal an analogy that the chairman has put on me from time to time. So I'm going to steal a little bit of his thunder. But it seems to me that this utility is akin to my house. And we've got a leaky roof. We've got a foundation that has some significant cracks in it. We've got floor joists that are cracked and failing. And you and your crew are doing what they can, but yet the revenues are not even in the ballpark to get there what we need. I think I heard Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, I think I'm in agreement with her, but it seems like she's on board that these 63 main projects that you've identified that are coming at a cost of $28 million. And then I noted another $10.4 million for 2 pump replacements. It would seem at a minimum that that's something, and I know I'm jumping all over the place, that's not a rate issue, but again, thinking in terms of infrastructure, that's something we should have done last year, 5 years ago. So I am completely on board on what needs to be done to identify the source of funding to get those funds in the hands of your utility to get them done. I just, to me, that's an absolute no-brainer. So I guess I'll get around to my first question. I apologize. Thank you for your patience with me. There was mention of ARPA funding. My understanding is that those funds need to be out the door by the end of this calendar year. Can you tell us about work that your utility has done, or any work the administration has done with your assistance, to identify ARPA funds that can be used to undertake some of the work that you've identified?
Sure. So, no, thank you for the insights. I think that, you hit on a lot of high points that we think about, every day at the utility. In regards to the ARPA funds, any funding source, that can support meaningful capital renewal is something that we're willing to take a look at. And we did receive some ARPA funds to do some infrastructure replacements. This was $1.2 million that we put into replacing two 12-inch mains in East Grand that were exceedingly problematic, had a history of breaks. This was approximately 1,200 feet of water main that we replaced utilizing those dollars. And it was about $860,000. And so that project is complete. Those funds have been spent. We had some remainder. That bid actually surprisingly came in under what we expected in the $1.2 million. So we put that towards repairing a leak of a 60-inch water main that was leaking, wasting water, causing an infrastructure challenge, and causing issues in the roadway. That repair is now complete. We've restored the pavement there. That was a water main that brought, it was a transmission main that brought treated water into the city limits right at Clayton and Big Bend from the Stacy Park Reservoir. So, that $1.2 million certainly was useful, beneficial. It made improvements, in water mains, and, ensuring that we address these leaks and ongoing emergency costs. But certainly any and all dollars that are available, we are willing to have those conversations and are having those conversations about. So,
and that was really my question.
Yeah.
Are you having those conversations with the administration with respect to the availability of funds that can be?
We are. I've felt a tremendous amount of relief in the conversations with the administration, that they support the Water Division, that they support the need to do meaningful capital renewals and address these challenges that affect the city service that we provide as the Water Division.
So did I hear your ask today? Well, I know you're not making an ask today, but with respect to your presentation, did I hear your prime today that if you had a wish list, it would amount to funding to undertake and complete the 63 main projects you've identified to a tune of $28 million, plus the replacement of 2 pumps at $10.4 million?
If I get to ask, I would ask for a lot more, but yes, I am that certainly. We identified, critical capital needs, produced a list, in these conversations that we are having with the administration, with the Board of Public Service, with the funding options that are available out there. It is a little larger than just those 2 projects, but yes.
I understand that. I understood that as these are the ones we got to do because this is the 16.54 miles where that are in the worst of the worst shape.
Yeah, no, for the water mains, certainly that is one of our focuses, to get funds to be able to address known needs in our distribution system, ahead. These projects were identified ahead of the master plan and longer and more comprehensive list that will come from it. But we wanted to highlight just a few options both for the treatment plants and for the distribution.
This is something that I'm not sure I heard right. I want to make sure I understand. You talked in terms of the utility having about 1,300 miles of water main, correct?
Yes.
In an ideal year, the goal is to replace 0.5% of those miles?
To work up to that, I mean, you know, we could set a more ambitious goal, but we're stepping into it. So we're setting something that we think we can ramp up to, and then, you know, we'll set the bar higher after that.
My math was that comes out to about 6.5 miles per year.
That's right.
So if you're doing that on a scheduled basis, that it would take the utility 200 years to work through its 1,300 miles of water main?
So yes, if you treat it like that, you know, we need to build up to a goal and then, you know, think bigger. So I think we would take a look as we start approaching a goal replacement rate of 0.5% per year to ramp that up. But, you know, you can't snap your fingers and do that overnight. And so, you know, if we can get to that goal, we would reset a goal to 1%. If we can get to that goal, we would reset a goal to 1.5%. You know, until, you know, we think that we have addressed significant reduction in emergency costs, significant renewal in the system.
Okay, so we've talked about the idea of we need to address infrastructure. We've got the worst of the worst of the worst that we need to address very, very soon. We talk in terms of a rate study that is underway that you hope to have the results of within the next 60 days or so. Do you anticipate, looking at your crystal ball, that you're going to need to raise rates?
So we're not deciding that ahead of time. The study is the tool that we use. These are professionals that do this work. They have financial backgrounds working with water utilities to assess and build a financial model. You know, we're waiting to see the results of that study.
You are waiting to see the result. Fair enough. You mentioned that our current rates are at $2.62 per CCF.
Yes.
What's a CCF?
A CCF is 100 cubic feet. It's approximately 748 gallons.
And how was that particular rate set? Is that based upon a prior rate sufficiency study that was done with a cost of living increase?
So that rate is actually, you know, the cost is a cumulative effect of past rate increases going back to a cost of service study. And so, you know, if you are taking a look at what it costs to serve each individual different type of customer that we serve, industrials, commercials, residentials, then, you know, you attribute the costs that it takes to serve those customers to a rate within that structure. So it is a different study that was done to establish that. And then from there, you know, if you feel that that cost structure is adequate, then, you know, you may just do a across the board adjustment, and that will just, you know, affect an increase percentage based on all of the different rate types that we have.
And is that historically what the utility has done?
So we are actually in need to do a cost of service study, and, you know, a series of studies, the first of which is a rate sufficiency study, the second of which is that cost of service study. You know, we've heard that a number of times from the elected officials, from community, from experts, you know, in the space, that it is time to do that study, and we're committed to do that study. But you do step through to that. So the rate sufficiency study comes first. We will then follow that up with a cost of service study.
I understand you don't have the results of that theoretical study in hand, but would your best educated guess be that our cost of providing that water to our utilities customers is greater than $2.62 per CCF?
So certainly, any new dollars that come my way, increased revenues that come my way, I have places to spend it. I think I've shown that, and so we spend our funds that are available as they are available. If we had higher funds available, we would do more work. We would address leaks more effectively, and we would address renewal more effectively.
Sure, sure. And I think you've done a wonderful job of showing us what your needs are and how you've spent the money. I have no quibble there. Let me be crystal clear. I do want to talk to you, though, however, about the rate collection efforts. And I know since you were last here, you have started the process of doing some shutoffs. I think you mentioned today, I think our current outstanding balances sit at about 14 million, if I remember right.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's right.
How many of our 94,000 customers are carrying a balance?
So it's a little over 16,000 accounts that are delinquent.
16,000 of 94,000 total accounts.
Sure, and that 18% that we presented was basically a flat calc on that. And the range of delinquency, is built in there too. If someone is delinquent 1 penny, they count. If someone is delinquent $10,000, they count as well.
Okay, so obviously we're more concerned about the folks that owe 10 grand, especially the commercial entities that owe 10 grand versus the individuals. Can you tell us about the efforts or any successes that your department has had since you were last here in whinnying down that deficit?
Sure. So, we have certainly had hundreds of applicants to the Customer Assistance Program. That program, that ARPA-funded program, has helped more than 400 applicants who were awarded up to $500 towards paying down their balance and then getting them into a repayment plan. That has helped us out. It helps our financial solvency. It helps our customers. And so, getting that level of debt down with a $500 jumpstart is immensely effective.
Sure.
And putting them in a plan that they can actually achieve rather than asking for the entire amount up front.
So that's $1 million pot, and any applicant can obtain as much as $500 relief.
If they are qualified. We have income, qualifiers, but yes, we have opened up the qualifying parameters too, so we can help even more people now. We went from 60% of the area median income to 80% of the area median income, and again, we've helped more than 400 successful applicants with payments upwards of $170,000.
Okay, you anticipated my next question.
All right.
So out of that fund, I mean, there's as much as $830,000 yet to be tapped by eligible applicants.
So there is a fee to administer the program, to develop the program, to run it. It is being administered by the United Way. The contract with them was $159,500. So it is approximately $840,950 available.
And of course, we want our residents to apply because they get the relief off their deficit, but we also, the utility meeting, collects the $500.
Correct, and there's multiple benefits there, right? Certainly, we help our financial situation out, but we get someone back on track into a repayment plan too. That's an important part of the program, is that they have to apply into a contract, a repayment agreement, to continue paying down the balance if there is any remaining balance owed.
This is my final question. I've gone on too long. I apologize. In your world of running a utility, in my world, 18% of folks owing on an account seems like a lot. Seems like a whole lot. In your world, if we think in terms of Springfield, Kansas City, Missouri American Water, What is typical from a percent basis?
So certainly when the moratorium was put into place, our collection rate was much higher. Our delinquent balance that was owed was significantly lower. We were shutting, we were keeping up with our customers, notifying them that they were falling behind, encouraging them to get into a repayment plan. And then COVID happened and the moratorium was put in place. The duration of that moratorium, I think, went against us. And so if it took 5 years to get to this point, it's going to take a long time to get back. We hope to make significant, gains back there, but it's not going to happen overnight. And certainly there was, a need to put a system in place to help people get back on track, extending the terms of the repayment plans where needed, as part of that, but also shutting where people are not contacting us, where people are not working with us to get their account back into good standing with a repayment plan. We are using the shutting tool.
What's an acceptable delinquency rate?
I don't have an answer for you there. I know that there have been times in the past where we were collecting more than 5% of what was owed. That was prior to the moratorium.
Whoa. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate your courtesy.
All right. Thank you.
Alderman Cox-Antwi.
Thank you very much, Director, for your presentation today. And I want to start by echoing what my colleague said. In my short time being in office and also now on this committee, your team and department has been an extreme asset to me. I know I've been down to visit you all many times and we've had many discussions. So I want to reiterate first and thank you for all the great work that you all are doing. I know you all are in a tough situation. I also want to, share and echo what my colleagues said about the sobering context of the presentation that you gave tonight. I think, most people can remember their elementary school class where you learn what people need are food, shelter, and water. And I think what we're talking about tonight is one of the most essential items that a city needs to keep its population running. So I want to ground us in that moment and echo the fact that it is hard to hear, that our water department is not in the best position to deliver on the mission that it was designed to do. And that is something that I think is an extreme urgent need that deserves our full attention. Some of the things tonight that you shared that stood out to me are the fact that we have a population that has the burden of sustaining a system that was designed for 1 million people, and we have over 300,000 people. I think when we talk about the economic burden on individual citizens to be able to pay to provide water, that is the circumstance that we are in, and I think it's a unique one to the city of St. Louis. And I would echo Alderman Devote's comments that if you look at the cost that each individual is paying right now for that system, I fundamentally agree that there is a massive disconnect there on what you all need to operate and what resources you have coming in. So I think that's really important for the public to hear and know and put into context. I'll also say, the other shocking thing too is that most of the infrastructure that is supporting our water is not from this century. And when that happens, the cost and that it takes to repair and maintain, and even probably some of the parts that you all need to maintain those systems are not on par, which is what is probably best for our citizens. And there is a need urgently, in order to be able to reduce your costs, that we upgrade the systems that we have, which is an even higher operational cost just outside of keeping this running. We need new equipment, and I think that's a message tonight that you all shared that I fundamentally agree and heard. I apologize to my colleagues. I do have a commitment that I need to make. I also have 1,000 questions that I have for you tonight based on this presentation. But for the sake of time, I'm going to try to consolidate it into just one so that I can make my commitment. And the one thing that, I want to make sure is asked, while we're here this evening is what I think a lot of people may take from this conversation is in that if we need to make all these repairs and if you all need these resources and if that revenue does not exist, how do you all get it? And I think, the most interesting, challenge that you all have in doing this study of needing to raise rates is that if that does need to occur, it's being done in a context where already people have extremely high cost burdens from a lot of the other utility and just general life increases of the inflation that we have. So I do think that is a unique challenge and position that you all may potentially have to face. My question is that the representative that spoke tonight from the Consumer Council said one thing that many residents may be looking for is transparency, and I think that's really important. It sounds like to me you guys have been fully transparent in the circumstance that you're in by coming tonight and bringing this presentation, and that you are going to conduct a rate sufficiency study to see if that is something that is needed and what the impact and need would be. Would you commit to bringing the results of that study back to this body if our chairman allows you to do tonight to be transparent in answering some of those public questions?
Absolutely. You know, presenting that information, and, you know, also thank you for the engagement, the meetings, you know, that we've had. I think they've been really meaningful. You know, working with you all is, you know, ideal. It's important. It has to happen. And, you know, presenting information of this kind to, you know, whether it's this committee or another committee, I think is also important. And so absolutely, we would be willing to come back and, you know, share the results of that study, you know, the recommendations, if any, of that study, and how we tackle, you know, not only the capital needs that we need to address in the next, you know, 5 years or so, but, you know, any deficiencies that may exist as well.
Thank you. Well, I think you being willing to make that commitment says a lot about the fact that you are willing to be transparent in the process and the potential impact that it would have to residents. But I'll close by saying I think there is without a doubt no need that you all need more resources to do the work that you're doing. And I look forward to hearing that presentation and working along with my colleagues to figure out how to support you in any way that we can, because I think we all share that commitment.
All right. Thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you, Chair Browning and members of the committee. I echo all the thanks to you of putting this presentation together and coming today. You are, as always, incredibly easy to work with and very informative. How much debt does the Water Division have?
So we currently just have the Series 2013 SRF loan that we put out there. You know, it was a $9.5 million loan, 20-year term, and, you know, we're approximately under $5 million owed debt.
That is one of the most important points I think that we can make, because when you look at both the rates for Missouri American Water and the rates in Kansas City, you also need to look at the debt these water systems have. Quick searches show that the parent company for Missouri American Water, they are reporting over $13 billion in debt, and they're doing about $450 million of repairs and work on their systems in 2025 they had. So when you think about the amount of debt we have for infrastructure that's 100 years old, we should have hundreds of millions of dollars in debt, in my opinion, for the Water Division. The airport has $500 million of debt. The Water Division has $6 million of debt and $400+ million of need. If you look at Kansas City's debt, they also, in their water department, they have $532 million in debt as of April of 2023. That is, to me, the biggest point that we need to figure out in both the rate sufficiency study is how do we have enough coming in that we can get the debt that we need so that we can build now what we will need for 100 years from now, and that we are providing a system of water that is still around in 100 years and people aren't paying these exorbitant rates on, but we are slowly paying back this debt because we know this system can last that long. You know, there's hundreds of questions I could ask, and we've had hours and hours and hours of conversation. But to me, that's all I really want to say tonight is we need more debt. That amount of projects that you presented today isn't even the tip of the iceberg for what the Water Division needs to do. And I would really like to see that amount of project planning happening for everything that needs to happen to get us to a point where we can get everything done the Water Division needs.
Sure. No, I appreciate those comments, and yes, that is how you tackle this problem.
Right.
Is through these loans. These debt instruments require rates that support them, and so again, that Series 2013 loan that was acquired, came on the heels of a rate increase that allowed it. So a lot of these revenue bonds do require new rates be set to ensure that you can meet that commitment.
And as you pointed out during the presentation, the 2013 bond does say that certain increases have to happen or should be happening, and not in line with what was said then. And that's a really interesting point. And when you think about paying back bonds, having debt, it has to be from money that's coming in, having an operating expenses in place, having capital and savings accounts, all of those things. So I'm not saying that you can just take on debt and not raise rates. I'm saying that, I really look forward to the rate sufficiency study, not only showing how to do the projects that you pointed out today, which I agree are crucial, and something that I believe things like the RAMS funding and putting those, capital dollars to work to get loans. I don't think we should just pay for projects outright like this. I think we should have more, the water division, I say we, but I'm not there. The water division should have more debt. And I appreciate that. And that's kind of where my mind is at, is I think the water division should have more debt than the airport does, and it doesn't.
Yeah,
and this has been around since the 1800s, so I appreciate that. And I appreciate everything that you've come to say to us today. And, I'm here for anything you need. So thank you for being here.
All right, thank you.
All right. I think we can all agree that Alderman Schweitzer has been one of the best advocates for the water division on this board, and I love just hearing the words, "We need more debt." It sounds counterintuitive, but she's right, and she's always been right about this. I'm kind of astounded that we had $1.2 million from ARPA money, because there was almost $500 million in that package that we received from the federal government. And it really does seem to me that when those funds were intended to relieve people from damage done during the pandemic, that a lot of the damage done to the water division has been during those pandemic years and post-pandemic years, with the rising costs, with the delinquent accounts, and now we're at where we are today. I'm going to get this question out of the way because I think if it hasn't already been asked, and I did miss a little questioning, but there's some folks who believe that if we switch to water meters citywide, that would be the solution for the water division's deficit. Can you speak a little to whether that would help and what it would cost to do something like that?
Sure. So, a water meter and a metered account, certainly is beneficial in the sense that it provides the information on the consumption and provides a equitable basis for billing. What it does not do is address, failing infrastructure in treatment plants, failing infrastructure in water mains. But that information can help. And there is a huge cost. And I think, I've presented the competition in capital needs that we have at the water division. It is the mains, it is the infrastructure that is causing these leaks, this non-revenue water to enter into, the ground and the sewers to surface. The cost of meters is something that is born in a combination of the water division in purchasing those meters and, putting them in an appropriate meter receiving pit, which is provided by the customer. And so any customer that wants to switch to a water meter account versus a flat rate account would have to take a look at our regulations to see what meter receiving pit infrastructure they have to have installed on their water service line in the right of way by a qualified plumber, and then we would then come out and install that meter. The cost of that work done by the plumber to install that is high. It's significant, and it is borne by the property owner or the homeowner. The cost for that meter is significant as well, although not as high as the initial installation cost of that meter pit. but that is something that is built into our budget and our rates. And so if we did have a higher cost to provide metered service in more meters, then that may skew the metered rate to go higher as well. And so ultimately the cost of providing the service to the different customer classes that are out there is recovered through rates set from a cost of service study. And so if that cost of service study shifts service related costs over to metered accounts from flat rate accounts, then that metered account rate might need to be adjusted as well. And so there may not be a savings there. I showed that chart that shows the break-even point. It's a pretty unbelievable deal. Unlimited water responsibly for one low fee. And with that 3% increase, the fee that we anticipate is around $40 a month. The metered rate is slightly less if you use less than that break-even point, slightly more if you use more. But in all cases, I think that we have a extremely affordable rate to the customers as they're paying today. And savings with those costs of installing that meter, being paid by the customer would take quite a long time to recover. And so, I talked about the CCF rate. I don't know how easy it would be for a customer to try to, reduce their consumption by a third or by half in the home, but that would save them, if it was 1,500 gallons a month, that would save them currently about $5.20. So, it's hard to get savings from reductions when we have a low commodity charge, a low consumption charge. And there is a cost of servicing the account in the metered rate as well. So there's a customer charge, a readiness to serve charge, that is flat regardless of how much you use. So that component would not change reduction. So, I do think it's a very good deal, the flat rate structure, and I do think that there's a huge cost associated with meters. I've heard estimates of $3,000 to $4,000, for that plumber to come out and install that pit. Even if it is a little bit less than that, with 80,000 flat rate accounts, we're talking about a lot of money. So, we could be talking about $200 million to install meters for all of those flat rate accounts, 200, 300, 400 million.
So when we have these other needs in the city with the water infrastructure, it seems that that's kind of a superfluous discussion to say we should be taking this moment to switch to water meters. I heard the word cost a lot in your answer, very detailed, very good answer. But I hear it's more expensive for the consumer, it's more expensive for the water division. And in the end, it doesn't really save the money that would get the division into the green. Is that an accurate summary?
I think so, and I do think that if someone is interested enough to convert to a metered account, we do have that happening, but it is something that people are doing, I don't think to save money. I think it's to know how much they're consuming and and have that metered service rate for their account.
And you can count me as a fan of the flat rate billing as well. I think it's actually the more equitable approach in that people with larger houses subsidize the usage for people with smaller homes, and so it evens out. You spoke about 63 projects that were necessary, 28 million, pump replacements at 10.4 million. We had 40 million on the table early last year in the form of RAM settlement funds, but that didn't get passed. Now, you spoke a lot about rising costs, which continue to rise. Is it safe to say that if money had been allocated a year ago, it would have been able to go farther than if we allocated the same amount of money today?
Absolutely. I think, taking a look at history, and history is where we should look, any dollars invested in infrastructure, especially infrastructure that lasts as long as this infrastructure lasts, are dollars better spent than saved. $18,000 to purchase the water division in 1835, $3 million to build Bissell water treatment plant And here we are talking about $1.7 million to replace a mile of residential water mains. The costs are not going to go down. We have seen cost increases of pipe through the inflationary, actions of COVID of over 280%. So things aren't getting cheaper, things are getting more expensive, and money you spend now is worth more than money you save and wait to spend later. I think the bankers make money on that money somehow. I haven't figured that out yet.
I think that's really boiling it down to what matters here, which is that while we hear that things are getting more expensive for the residents of our city, we feel it here on the board. Our salaries are flat too, so inflation keeps going up, and we feel the bite of the groceries getting more expensive, of the sewer bill getting more expensive, of the electric bill getting more expensive. But at the same time, the water division's expenses are going up because things are not getting cheaper. So it feels like a perfect storm that put us where we are today. But the duration of the moratorium on water shutoffs, starving the water division of one of its only sources of revenue, the lack of action by this board and by past boards of aldermen, with the inability to raise rates when we needed to, that put us behind after the pandemic, rising costs, lagging revenues, and the slow, steady march of time on our water infrastructure. I think this presentation has done a great job of explaining that delaying capital improvements costs us money down the road, both in terms of emergency repairs and in rising costs. And it sounds like the water division is doing what it can to make money go farther, but that can only help delay the inevitable decline of our infrastructure that happens with time and lack of investment. I really appreciate the detail that we received today, and I know that under your leadership of the water division and also the past director, we've seen a real effort to communicate the needs, but it is time that we act here at the board and with the mayor's office. We need both short-term investment in the form of capital improvement funds and short and long-term revenue in the form of rates and a consistent, transparent rate review process that the city honors and adheres to, so that we don't end up here again, and so that we don't end up in a situation like we did a couple years ago when it was an emergency and we couldn't give it the transparency and accountability that it deserved. But in the end, that responsibility lies with us. I think you have done what you should be doing at the water division to keep our water clean and affordable and safe. But we need action from this board and from this administration to make sure that our water division is fiscally healthy today and far into the future. So thank you again for coming today. Is there anything that you want to close with?
No, I thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the Public Utilities Committee. Obviously, we are the public utility that is owned by the city of St. Louis. We take the responsibility seriously. We have to be good stewards of the sustainability of the division for the future. That is my goal, is to provide information, to committees like this, in forums like this, to help make good decisions, right? So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on. Madam Clerk, is there any written testimony?
We have none.
Do any members of the committee have any announcements? Seeing none, all members were present today, so there's no need to excuse any members. And with that, we will adjourn. Thank you.